He's been very successful in the business of sports as well, owning multiple different teams, coaching, managing teams that I didn't actually know until we did a little research on our next guest who's going to join us. Of course, he was invited to the Chicago Blackhawks training camp, but elected not to go because his father, Herb, had passed away, and he came home back in the 1960s to run and help run the family business. Many of you might know it. It's turned into the Brick, which became pretty successful. And now, many years later, they're still a big sponsor on our show. Bill Comrie joins us. Bill, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I knew a little bit about you. Obviously, I've met you once before, but I did not know the backstory going back to even, when your father. So I want to talk about that because obviously, I lost my father not as long as you. I was 27. It's obviously a very tough thing to deal with. And so your father, Herb, passes away. And, you have a tough decision. It's, okay, could I go try out for hockey? Obviously, it's in the original 6 days. It's damn hard to make those teams. You chose the family business, and obviously it was a very good choice for you. Kind of walk us through that. And as I think you were 19, Bill, when you had to make that decision, and how challenging that was at that time.
Yeah, I was 19, just about to turn 20, and I was supposed to go to, back in the day, it wasn't a draft. You signed, it was a C form, I think it was called. And so there was no draft. So I signed, I had quite a few of the teams wanting me to sign. I signed with Chicago Blackhawks, and then I went and played for their farm team there in Moose Jaw. And then I ended up playing with the Oil Kings after Moose Jaw folded, actually. So my dad passed away, and I was going to go to camp. And my mom said, "You can't leave. We don't have any money. There's a mortgage on the house. There's payments on the car." And my mom had never worked. And my dad he sold furniture, right? And then he had a little tiny furniture spot where he had furniture. And she said, "Well, you got to sell the business." Well, there really was no business to sell. So I found two guys that would buy half of it. And Tiny Thompson was the general manager or the head scout of Chicago Blackhawks. He kept calling me, "Why aren't you here? Why aren't you here?" And I had to explain to him, and he still couldn't figure out why I wouldn't go to the, Chicago. But we were a little bit desperate, and I found two guys that had a really bad location, and they couldn't rent it out. And they said, "We will buy half if you buy half." And so it wasn't very much. It was I think 20 grand total. And they said, "You have to put up half." And I said, "Well, he said, how much money you have?" I got that used car. It's about $400, right? And they went, "Okay, well, we'll sign at the bank." And they co-signed for me. So I still owed half. And then I started a Midnight Madness, which was crazy. I was 19 years old. I had 1,000 people outside trying to get in. And I didn't even know what it was crazy times. And so then I wanted to expand. I had a old Safeway store that I found, and they didn't want to expand because so they bought me out for $8,000, and $16,000, and I still owed the bank $8,000. So I started Bill Comrie Furniture with $8,000, and then we moved to the Brick building and called it Comrie's Big Brick Warehouse, and then it became the Brick. That's that story.
My mom told me a story, and I apologize if I don't have it right, but when you were in the Edmonton Journal, she swears it was for a month, you had this, just a red square at the top of the front page of the Journal, and people didn't know what it was because there's no internet back then, and it was just building up the hype to it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God." And then finally it opened. Do you remember? And because marketing is a big thing back then, and it's obviously changed to how it is now. And my mom swears by that. She was like, that was the most genius one because had everybody talking what is it? What's coming? And all it was this red brick. No one knew what it was. Whose idea was that?
Well, if it was really good, it was mine. That was after. But then I started doing my own TV ads too. That was another situation,
Did you save any of those sports jackets, Bill? I've never seen you wear one.
Oh, they were great. You know what happened, Rich, is I went on and I had one of those sports jackets, and people started talking about it. So my next commercial, my cousin Gary had a clothing store in Edmonton, and I'd go down to him and I'd say, you got to give me the loudest jacket, because so I would just borrow it and go on and do it with the loud jacket, because that was something people still talk about. I mean, you remember it.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Bill, you obviously had a lot of success in building a good business, but you were also involved in lots of hockey coaching and managing for football. Like you took over the Maple Leafs, the MLAC, when, they were pretty brutal, and they built them up. And I think you guys won 2 provincial championships. I kind of want to go into what was your mindset in how you built successful teams and got guys to come together and succeed in both hockey and football.
It was interesting. I coached the Ched Good Guys, and that was the top team in the Maple Leafs at the time. And I had a really young team, and they were all coming back the next year, and we'd end up winning the championship. And I got the coach of the year, which was great. And so then I was starting my business, and this guy named Alan Meyer was the person with the Maple Leafs, came down to my store and said, we'd like you to coach again, right? And I go, well, I'm just so busy right now. He says, well, why don't you take over Pardee equipment team? That's our other team. And we sort of stack one team, and this one is a weaker team, so you won't have to spend as much time with the kids, right? And I go, well, I don't, if I come back, I got all my whole team back. I'll come back and coach Ched. He goes, well, you said you weren't coaching, so we already hired a guy, named Jim Robbins to coach Ched. And I go, oh, well, I probably won't come back. And then I started thinking about it. So I phoned him and I said, listen, maybe I will do I'll take the Pardee team, right? And it really, it was a struggle. So Harold Snips played football for me. I won 2 provincial championships. So my brother Fred played for Stettelbauer as a juvenile football team. And he said he's going to quit when Dad died. And I said, no, I'll come and coach, right? So I went and met the guy who was a guy named Gary Acorn was coaching. And he said, I said to him, I want to come and coach with you. And he goes, well, okay, what side of the ball you like? I said, well, I played Bonnie Doon. I played, running back. So I said, offense. He goes, oh, great. I like defense. So we got together and we ended up winning the championship. And then the next year, Harold Snips played. He played tight end for me. And then he was trying out for Pardee equipment. And he wasn't doing very well. He kind of was, not going to make the team. And so I had 6 guys picking him and working with me on it. One of them was Andy Wigston, who runs the brick tournament with Craig Stiles now. And so I said, look, we're going to pick. And so anyways, I went to Harold after, and I felt so bad. He played for me. I said, Harold, will you give it everything you have? I got to do extra. So he said, yeah, anything. So first meeting I had with the team, I went, look at you guys. You guys, if you don't want to play here, you're not predicted to do too well. And they go, yeah, no, we want to play. I said, okay, everybody wants a release. I'll give them a release. Anyways, we got beat pretty bad in the first part of the season. And then we started getting better, and we made the playoffs late, and it was by Christmas time, Harold really, I'd go on the snowbanks because they wouldn't give us. We didn't have as much practice time, so we had the outdoor rink by the racetrack in Edmonton, the horse races there, and so we rented that. I had that rink and outdoor. I had Harold in the snowbanks trying to make him turn to the left. He couldn't turn to the left, right? You got to go turn to the left, Harold, right? So anyways, so he was playing really good, and by the playoffs, he was my best player on the team, and we ended up facing Ched in the final, and the parents already got along because of Ched always won that type of team, and they weren't used to. So we beat them in a best of 5. We went to Calgary and won the provincials, and I went to Brian Shaw. I was coaching the Oil Kings at the time, and I said, listen, Harold, I played for Brian. And he said that I said, I'd like you to see this Harold Sims. He really has gone a long way. He's a big kid, and and he'll work real hard. And Brian came out and watched one of our games. Right, it was right before we went to Calgary, and he goes, "Yeah, okay, you can come out and practice with us." Right, and so he went and practiced with him. He made the team the next year. A year later, he gets drafted by the Vancouver Canucks. He calls me. He says, "Hey, coach, I'm starting tonight in Vancouver." And he says, "You're going to watch?" I said, "Of course I'm going to watch." So I watched. And after the game, he called me and said, "What'd you think?" I said, "Still having a little trouble turning it to the left." He said, "You can't say that tonight." I said, "I'm just joking." So, but it was. By the way, I did go to the Maple Leaf banquet, and Jim Robbins had run away with the league with Chad, but then we beat him, and so they were giving out the Coach of the Year, and I got the Coach of the Year with Chad the year before. And they announced the Coach of the Year is Bill Comrie, and I walked up, and it was that Al Meyer. He said, "Give me the trophy," and he goes, "We're going to change the name back to your name." They had Jim Robbins on it because they'd won the league, but we beat him in the playoffs. Anyways, that was my little coaching there.
Yeah, but for when you coach, though, did you have a philosophy? Like, how did you get your players to improve? Like, how did you take coaching, and did you see similarities in how you ran a business?
100%. I demanded a lot, right? My practice, like when I came down here, a guy named Rick Kelly, who Rich knows, played professional hockey for years, and he came, like I'd coached the boys in Edmonton too. My sons Eric and Ty and Mike and Paul, I coached them all the way up, man. But like when I coached with Rick down here, I went, okay, we're going to run a practice, and I gave him a practice schedule. It's 1 minute we're going to do this, 3 minutes we're going to do this, 5 minutes. He goes, well, nobody's ever organized a practice like this, and we're going to introduce the power play, in 2 practices, the penalty, so. I was one thing. I was very organized in business, and I felt very organized in hockey and in football. How I coach, I'm very involved. I would Rich knows the kid down here, Trevor Moore, who plays for the Los Angeles Kings now. His skating wasn't really great, but he. I kept pushing him, and he won the race, right? And he goes, "Oh, hey, coach." And I go, "Yeah, it's the good news and bad news. You won the race, but now I expect you to win every race, right?" So, but I just, I would feed them positive, but our system, every system was practice every day. So, anyway, that's coaching.
Now, Bill Comrie joins us. You had success coaching in football, obviously in hockey, and then you went into, you had a lot of success at the Brick, and you built that up, and everybody knows what the Brick is today. And then you had a major role in all of that. But then you went into professional ownership, Bill. And I got to think, as a coach, maybe it's very different as an owner. How hands-on you are obviously varies from owner. We see some owners are very successful, and other owners aren't very successful. You purchased the BC Lions at a time when they weren't doing very good. And I think it was 2 years later, you guys won the 1994 Grey Cup. What was your philosophy as an owner? How hands-on, how involved were you? Or are you a believer, I hire guys to coach and they coach?
Yeah, I was probably a little bit more hands-on than I maybe should have been, but I don't know if we would have won the Grey Cup if I wasn't. So, so I'll give you an example. So, like Larry Smith and John Torrey were the head of the league at the time. Larry was the commissioner and John was the chairman. And I met them in 1992 at the end of the season. They were playing Toronto, and I was at the game, and the league was in trouble. BC Lions, if they lost BC, and they had like 7,000 season tickets, right? Now 7,000 people come to the games, not season tickets. And the team was a disaster. I think they'd won 3 games, right, all year. And so I told Larry, okay, well, I'll buy it, but I want the Grey Cup here in 2 years, right? He says, why 2 years? I said, well, I'd like to win the Grey Cup at home, right? And he goes, Bill, this is a 5-year project, right? I go, well, if you want me to buy, and I know you need a buyer, I want the Grey Cup here in 2 years. He says, all right, we'll give you the Grey Cup in 2 years. But and so anyways, the first year we made the playoffs and lost out in the first round. In the second year, I was very involved in a big trade with Ottawa because Bernie Gleiberman, he owned them, and he was like, they kind of did a sneaky trade on us, and so I called them out for it. And so we ended up getting like probably 4 players back that all played in the Grey Cup for us, right? And so then we go to Edmonton and we win the last play of the game. And I'm in Edmonton. Don't forget, I'm in Edmonton. I was on the Edmonton Esco board. I mean, I'm an Edmonton Esco fan. I'm in the box, the visitor box, and my friends are all got their Edmonton jerseys on, and they're looking up at me like we're going to get beat, right? And anyways, we ended up getting lucky that we got an interception, and Louis Pisaglia kicked a field goal in the last play of the game. We go to Calgary, and we are like 22-point underdogs, and we're getting beat pretty good. And Danny McManus comes in, who I wanted to be our quarterback, and I did talk to the coach about that, but he didn't listen to me much. But he came in, it started to snow, and we started coming back. We came back down to the last play of the game against Calgary, and Danny throws a button hook. I don't know if you know who caught it in the end zone.
Swervin' Mervin? Was it Fernandez?
No. Danny McManus.
Ray Alexander, Darren Flutie?
No. The quarterback for the great quarterback for Calgary was the best quarterback in Calgary.
Well, they had Doug Flutie. They had Garcia. No.
Little guy played in the NFL.
Yeah, Doug Flutie. Yeah,
his brother Darren Flutie got the touchdown against Darren was on the other team. Darren Flutie ended up catching the winning touchdown on the last play of the game against Calgary. Now we're going to Vancouver. I call the coach and I go, well, Danny McManus. He goes, yeah, but he's our backup. I go, God, you got to be kidding me, right? But anyways, he was the coach, and anyways, he started our other quarterback, and Kent Austin. We were losing to Baltimore, and Kent got hurt. Danny come in and got us there, and last play of the game, field goal, Pisaglia right through the middle, and we won last play of the game, 3 games in a row to win.
Oh yeah, I think.
And then I'm on the stage, getting the Grey Cup, and I wanted to say it's mine, but I had to go. No, here's the coaches. Owners always do that, right?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that '94 Lions, you won 3 playoff games by a combined 5 points, which I think is like the fewest points. Like every game, as you mentioned, Bill, came right down to the wire. Interceptions, field goals. So definitely, you got your money's worth. What was the biggest difference in being owner of a professional team compared to how different you run a normal business?
Well, okay, so when I bought the team, and this happens in all sports, so we had to change general manager. So everybody, you need this guy's got the experience, this guy's got the experience, he's got the experience. And I met with them and I went like, it's just the same old that's going to happen, right? I've got to think outside the box here. So I brought a guy in who you will know his name is Eric Tillman, right?
Yeah.
He was a young kid at the time, had no experience. He ran the Senior Bowl in down in the U.S. where they're sort of the all-star, college kids, and he knew which kids fit the Canadian Football League that could never make the NFL. Well, we brought in Philip Pod, whose kids are both playing now, he brought in kids that were quite amazing that couldn't make the NFL, but were really suited for the CFL. So he was really a major. When you hire people in business or sports, you've got to think how they're really going to help you, not because they've done this before. Anyway.
I like that a lot. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back more with Bill because I want to expand on that because what you just said opened a big can of worms for me, Bill. So look forward to it next. The Business of Sport, Jason Gregor, Rich Winter. Our special guest, Bill Comrie, today on Sports 1440. Business of Sport, our big guest of the day is brought to you by Silent Ice Center, state-of-the-art entertainment facility in Nisku, features 2 sheets of ice, including a 1,600-seat arena and a restaurant with a viewing area, great place for hockey, concerts, and curling. That's the Silent Ice Center. And our guest, of course, is Bill Comrie, of course, started the Brick and just went on to many other things as an owner of the BC Lions, had a part ownership of the Chicago Cubs, and then they broke the streak, so we might have to get into that. I don't know, did you sacrifice a goat in that one? I'm not really sure. I love that legend of the Chicago Cubs over the years. And Bill, what you said, though, before the break really piqued my interest. You said in sports, you want to hire someone for what you believe they can do for you, not what they have done previously. And a lot of times in sports, you recycle a lot of people. And I know that experience is important, but there's also an opportunity to have other people involved. And being involved in sports, and you've been in the CFL, you've been in MLB, you've been in the AHL, or was it the IHL with the San Diego Gulls? I can't remember. But it is different, right? And it seems that there's a lot of people that always want, well, this guy's got experience, I got to go with them. You bucked that trend, and obviously it worked for you. But why do you think it's so hard for a lot of owners in pro sports to always want to go with the kind of the recycled same guys all the time?
I don't want to sound like I know more than them, but I grew up playing sports, coaching sports, understanding sport. A lot of owners they're really great business guys, and they just buy teams. So they listen to other people that make the decisions for them, right? Not everyone, but a lot of the owners of different teams, haven't got really sports experience. They haven't really played the game. Not many, but there are some. And I think it's easier for you to understand the game if you really played it.
Okay, and that's valid, right? And really in business, a lot of people that are successful in business start out doing the small areas. You got to understand all the nuances of your business. It's really hard to just hand somebody, oh, you know what, you're going to come in and you're going to be the CEO right off the hop. It's pretty difficult to understand your business. And in sports, I could see it being the same way. Now,
I don't want to interrupt you there, but I almost think the opposite, right?
Okay.
Like I grew up in a dressing room.
Yeah.
Right. And when I started my business, a lot of the people that worked for me were guys that were in hockey and different. Yeah. But a dressing room there's players, there's assistant captains, there's captains, the coach, the general manager, and the owner. A business is really the same if you build it that way, right? If you use really sports dressing rooms really helped me, do the brick or build the brick. It was only myself and my brother. My younger brother was working for me at the time, and then as I hired people, I really learned from the dressing room.
What did you learn most from the dressing room?
First of all, I learned that you have to be a team, right? You had to be a team, and there was a pecking order, right? So if I ended up, like say the brick later, I had all the people working for me, I had managers, who were, assistant captains. I had vice presidents who, were, maybe the vice presidents were assistant captains. The president was the captain. I was the owner. It's very, the structure is very, very similar if you think about it. It helped me. It definitely, the dressing rooms really helped me a lot. I know that, I don't know, I'm not bragging about this, but I gave the employees a bunch of money when I sold, and other people hadn't done it, and they said, "Well, why'd you do that?" I said, "Because it was really the right thing to do. It was really the right thing to do because I grew up in the dressing room. It wasn't me that did the whole thing. It was we did it as a team. That's how I feel."
Well, and Bill, talk about the San Diego Gulls, because in terms of starting out with helping guys start out, there's still guys in the game who've learned a lot from that experience. That was a big year when you guys when you bought the team down there, and you had a pretty interesting group of players, coaches, managers.
Yeah. Well, so my brothers live in San Diego, and this San Diego golf team came up, and I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll get involved." And so my brother said, "Look, you know more about it. Why don't you hire a coach?" So I went to Montreal NHL meetings, and I wanted to hire the right coach, not somebody that did this and that. Right? So, anyways, I had three lined up, three guys, and I won't say the other two guys, but so the first guy came in. I said, "Bring your playbook," right? I said, all three of them, "Bring your playbook. I'm going to ask you questions." So I asked them questions like, how do you break out of a left wing lock? What's your, forecheck, with two guys? Do you have a support guy? Do you have one defenseman high? I'd ask them these questions on a penalty kill. How do you, are you going to overload? And well, these guys brought in, the first two guys come in and they had some little pieces of paper, and then Rick Dudley came in, right? And he had a book. And I said, "How do you left wing lock?" He goes, "Here, let me go here. This is how we break." And I go, "Oh, that's pretty good. What about here?" He goes, "Yeah, it's good." Anyways, he became our coach, and we went from last to winning the championship.
And the GM,
and it was Dudley that was really instrumental. And then he went on. Actually, the coach that coaches the Winnipeg Jets, where my son Eric played for the San Diego golf team also. Right? But there's a lot of guys that went on from that San Diego team. But Dudley was, matter of fact, it's funny. Eric had made the 18 and under team. We're in Slovakia, and Ty Domi's son Max played on the team with him. And Ty and I were kind of hanging out, so a bunch of NHL guys were there. And so Ty says, "Hey, let's say hi to them." He walked in, and he said, "You know Rick Dudley?" And Dudley says, "Yes, I know him very well. He was the owner. He asked me questions that no owner's ever asked me before."
Bill Comrie joins us. And Bill, you mentioned your boys, man. They've had a lot of success, from goaltenders, to forwards, very different positions. You mentioned you coached them. How was your approach at coaching not only them but other kids at that time? And obviously your boys are, they're almost a little bit different generations. Eric's, quite a bit younger than Mike and Paul. So, you had to coach, in different decades. What was your approach to coaching as a father?
It was interesting because, hockey parents are hockey parents. And so Mike, Paul, and Ty were forwards.
Yeah.
I coached them. I only coached the defense because I didn't want anybody thinking that I was sending out my kid too much. So The other coach would coach the forwards. I'd coach the defense. Of course, we would talk, together. But I was mostly coaching the defense. And when Eric became a goalie, I really wanted to coach defense. But that's yeah, you know what, the good part is they're good parents, they're good family guys, and it's all great.
Well, I thought about you today, Bill, because I was on with the assistant general manager of an NHL team, and I did something that you and I don't know how many other people do. The phone rang, and it was Mike Comrie's critic calling. You remember the one that said he couldn't play in the NHL? My daughter, Alana?
Yeah.
So, well, because we'd actually gone to Mike's last game, and Alana said to us on the way back on Bill's plane, she says, like, I don't know, like, he didn't score in his last game, right? And she said, I don't know if he can play in the NHL, Dad. It's like, so we tell that story. But more importantly, I said to the assistant GM what you would say when she called. What did I say?
Yeah, Bill, take the call.
I got to take the call. Just hold on a second. And Bill, that's something Bill taught me that, and I remember being challenged by it a little bit because Sheila, I would say I'm calling, about Mike or something, and Sheila would say, "Oh, I got to get Bill right away." And he said, "Well, like, it's not that important." No, if it's about his kids, he's got to take the call. And that's been, I think that's been your mantra. You've been a really good example to me, but, and we talk a lot about our kids, but I think at the end of the day, the success you've had in business, I'm sure you would agree, is almost irrelevant compared to the success you've had building a family.
Yeah, well, family's everything. That's for sure. Yeah, Paul would call my office, and I'm in a board meeting, and Paul said, "No, it's just Sheila. It's just about homework. I can talk to him after." She go, "Oh no, I'd be out of that board meeting. No, what's more important?"
Well, and it's funny; those are small things, but they're big things. Like, I think the small things are the big things, and I think that, I just always found it interesting, and it's really, I think, changed the relationship that both of us have with our kids, because I don't think either any of your kids or any of mine think that they're anything but first in terms of how we approach it, and that's a big deal in terms of building relationship. The only problem with the Comrie family, though, is you got to be really careful. If they ever invite you to a family event and they suggest you join the tennis tournament,
it's very competitive.
Very competitive.
Very competitive.
Who would you say, like, who's the most competitive, Bill?
Me.
Are you?
It's equal. It's equal. And my Kathy's husband Jay, they live in Edmonton. It's like he's just as competitive as all of us. And there's 4 boys, myself and him, and it's like it's a family war. The tennis. we had to get we have an NCAA judge now in ball boys and ball girls, because you got to
trust each other.
Calling it out, that wasn't out. No.
Oh yeah, that was 6 inches out. I know what you're talking about.
Now, Bill, we've had a few texts wondering, were you ever when OAG, because you're big in the community, when the OAG obviously kept the orders around, how much of a role did you want to play in that? Kind of walk us through what happened there.
Yeah, it was interesting because you know what, I put that whole thing together. There was a big hate on for Peter at the time, and I called Peter, and they were talking about moving the Oilers and all that, and I called Peter, and I said to him, "Look, hey Peter, I would like to have a meeting with 20 people from Edmonton that we want to talk about keeping the Oilers here, but I'm not inviting you." And Peter was a good friend of mine, and I golfed with him a lot, and we traveled together. He was very generous to me, and he took me to a lot of games and that. But I told him, "You can't come." It's and so I invited 20 guys. We had it at the Mayfair Golf and Country Club, and I said, "Everybody keep it quiet," right? I got a call from a guy named Cal Nichols, who you guys know very well now. And Cal called me and he said, "I just sold my business. I heard there's going to be a meeting. Can I come?" And I said, "Well, I promised there would only be 20 guys. Let me get back to you." And nobody kind of knew Cal at the time. And so I called him back and I said, "Look, you can come, But since there's only 20 guys, you be the 21st, you can't say anything, you just have to listen, right? And Cal said, okay, I have no problem with that. So we had like Agrius and Urker and, the Melton and, all the Edmonton, guys. And so we first got in, Glenn Sather, I had Glenn there, right? And so I started the meeting and I said, look, I don't, let's talk about how we can solve the problem. When you talk about business and sports, he said, let's just talk about the issues. Don't want to talk about Peter. Well, first person says, well, if Parkland and then I said, look, this is not going to, we can't go there. And that's, look, hey guys, we're going to stop now. Let me start with what I can do, right? I sell to Sealy, I sell to Sony, I sell to Serta, and I went through, they have boxes in Vancouver, they have boxes in Toronto, Calgary. I'm asking them to buy tickets here. I'm going to my suppliers to get them to buy tickets here. Now let's talk about that. Then guys started to, get into it and all that. So the meeting, oh, by the way, the meeting was very quiet. Nobody knew about it, except when we pulled in, there was CTV and CFR, the ITV, they're all their trucks were outside. And I'm going, Jesus, it's really quiet. Edmonton's very quiet, right? So anyway, we have the meeting. The Mayfair, the Mayfair manager comes to me, goes, look, they really want to, talk to somebody here, right? And so I had Dennis Cirker beside me. I said, I don't want to talk. Dennis, you talk. So Dennis says, okay, but I don't want to be the I said, no problem. So Dennis talked and explained what we were doing. We want to make sure the team stays here. And then Cal calls me after and he goes, listen, I got extra time. If you guys don't want to do it, I can come to my office. He showed me his office. I said, great. And so then Cal put a group together to buy. He wanted me to be part of it, right? So I would have loved to have been part of it, right? However, I went and talked to my two boys, Mike and Paul, and said, what would you think of me investing in the Oilers? Dad, you can't. If we ever made NHL, it'd be because you invested. I said, so then I went back to Cal and he said, well, we can do it anonymous. We have this guy, he did anonymous, right? So I went back to the boys and I went, look, we can do anonymous. This guy did anonymous. He goes, Dad, if he's anonymous, how do you know his name? So I went, yeah, you're right. So I went to Cal and I explained it and they totally understood it. But I helped when they sold and Daryl wanted to buy. There was a couple holdouts and I helped Daryl get the holdouts. And obviously Daryl's been a good owner.
Bill Comrie joined us, and I love that, Bill. Kind of, and it's funny that Mike and Paul both end up playing for the Edmonton Oilers, so they had a little bit of looking in their crystal ball at the time. I don't think anybody, but I understood. I can understand their mindset, unfortunately, because there will be people that will view that as, oh, they're only there because of their father and who they know. And we hear that all the time. Heck, I see it in U11 and U13 sometimes. And I'm like, I think we need to.
I think Mike might have overcome it by scoring 33 goals. It wasn't Bill that, did that, but it's, I can see what they were thinking. And, but it's pretty interesting.
We didn't know that they were going to make it either, Rich.
Oh, that's true. We didn't.
Hockey parents down here. So Mike was playing for the Phoenix Coyotes and the hockey parents, the good players, they're 10, 12 years old. Their kid's going to make the NHL. He's the best player around here. They're going to make. They would come to me like, Mike plays for Phoenix Coyotes. When did you know he was going to make the NHL? I said I actually knew exactly. I knew exactly. That's well, when it worked. I said I was at the Montreal Canadian game and I saw him skate on the ice for the first time. I went, he made the NHL. And until that, everybody makes the NHL.
Yeah, and it's a very good point. Like, it is hard to make. Now, as a proud Edmontonian, as a father, I mean, everybody saw, Mike comes to Edmonton and it was great and he was having success. And then, there's a contract negotiation. It didn't work out that way. And but he did get to come full circle. And I remember talking to Mike about it, and it was actually a preseason game when he got in a scrap. And I know how Edmonton fans are. It was just like, oh my God, I love this guy again. Like it's Mike Comrie now, he's fighting. But how important was that for you, Bill, to kind of see that relationship repaired a little bit between the fans and Mike in Edmonton?
Yeah, it was important for me, but more important for Mike. Right? Yeah. I mean, Mike loved Edmonton. He grew up in Edmonton and that. And Rich Winter screwed up the contract. So, but other than that, this was, Rich was very, very good.
But it was tough, Bill. It was tough.
But I'll let you, so Mike got a goal and an assist, I think, the first game that he played. It was a preseason, I think it was, right? Or something like that, where he got a goal, whatever, he got something. And then he got in the fight, right? So he told my son, Paul, that he's going to fight that guy that night, right? And Paul said, no, Paul, Mike, you don't. That's the guy that gave Paul the concussion.
Oh, I remember that. That's a good brother, man. I love it. That's totally valid. That's 100%. I did not know that.
Yeah,
neither.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Well, Mike wasn't overly, but Mike was highly competitive, right? Like he was very, very skilled player, but he had a little bite to his game. There's no question.
Oh yeah, he was fighting. I'll tell you another cute story about that on that game. So Mike. He's going to want to fight. He was going to fight that guy, but he wanted to. Back in Edmonton, I'm going to show them that I really care, right? Yeah. So he was lined up, and they were playing against Vancouver. It was a different game. Maybe the first game they played, and he said to the kid as they were facing off, "You want to fight?" And the kid said, "No, I don't want to fight." Mike said, "I'll help you make the team," right? The kid said, "I'm not going to make this team." I said, "Oh, okay." Little things that happen on the ice, right?
Right. Well, hey, and Mike at the time was like, he'd scored 30 goals twice in the National Hockey League, 60 points multiple times in the NHL. So you know what? He probably knew a few things about how to get there.
Well, and people don't always understand. Like Bill's right about what happens on the ice. I represented Brent Myers, the most suspended player in the history of the game for drug and alcohol abuse, and I remember I forget the St. Louis player was. But a preseason game. So he says to him, Brant says to him, like, we got to go. The guy says, Brant, I'm not going in a preseason game. He goes, buddy, I've been waiting for this for a year and a half. So gloves came off. Well, people don't understand. Like, it's sort of like, talking at a bar and no, I don't agree. Okay, drop them.
Yeah, no, you got
I'll tell you a little bit about BC Lions if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's how, like you said, like, how do you, pick the team and that. So I was so involved in getting, not on the field as much. I helped in that one trade, we would chat. But off the field, there were 7,000 people come to the games. BC Lions was bankrupt, right? And so when I took it over, I was sitting in the box. I had my guys from the Brick, Kim Odlin, who does promotion. He does a lot of advertising for the Brick still. On the field, and one of the girls that worked for us on the field, and I was in the box as the owner. I had the headsets on just like you have, and I'd be talking to them. And so right away, the music didn't come on quick enough. That music has to come on right now. So I was like, we would meet right before, 2 weeks before the game. What's the entertainment going to be? What music are we going to use? And those type of things.
Yeah.
And back then there was no emails. I wrote at least 1,000 handwritten letters to fans that were the guy spilling beer on me in the front, and I'll be at the game, in 2 weeks, I'll come down to your seat, right? But we went to 27,000 average, 60,000 in the Grey Cup, and so I mean it's not, it doesn't happen by accident. You've got to work at building a business, whether it's sports or selling furniture. It takes effort.
Moves like a butterfly, stings like a bee. Nobody beats
Bill
Comrie.
Comrie. That's in tennis and other sports.
Bill, I got to ask you, what was your, because I got a fun before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time today. What is your favorite coach? If you had to if you could look back at all the years, because I can tell you, for many years, that black, I used to call it, and I still do, because the Bricks had advertised, I kind of joke about the black leather couch that every bachelor would have had in his life. It was unbelievable. Could fall asleep on that thing after a late night. It was perfect to watch a game. Did you have a favorite piece of furniture from your time at the Brick?
A favorite piece of furniture?
Yeah. Coach, anything that you're just like, that's
okay. I'll tell you a story. So my first wife, Teresa, we had a little house in Otwell, and about 1,000 square feet, small house. And people came in to buy some tables, right? And those tables that they liked were going on delivery this afternoon, but they wanted it. And I went, and they said, we need it right away. I said, we'll get it right away. Our drivers knocked on the door. Mrs. Comrie, we're here to pick up the tables in your living room. Yeah, no. And when I was on real quick, when I was on TV, people came into the store and went, "Oh, wow, I saw you on TV. I didn't, I see people on TV. I never thought I'd." And I go, "Yeah." So then I sold them, some tables and lamps, and they went, "Yeah, that's great. When would you like it delivered?" They went, "When can you do it? We can do it tonight, tomorrow, whatever we can deliver." Right? And they said, "Well, we can get it tonight." And I go, "Yeah." That's me in the half-ton truck delivered. We're carrying it into their house. They went, "Why on TV?"
Hey, you know what? I think a lot of people, when you run a business, and you do a lot of things. That's just how you can't. There's no job that's above you or below you, I should say, when you're the owner of a business.
Yeah, 100%.
It's why Coach Wooden was a great coach. He never, his teams never left a dressing room anything but cleaner than what it was when they arrived.
Yeah,
it's showing respect for people and working hard, man. It's the key.
Very true. Bill,
I know you don't have much time, but do you have time for a little quick Grey Cup?
Sure, yeah.
So we won the Grey Cup, right? Now my president and I are in the dressing. Well, first of all, the guy gave me a big leather jacket. BC Lions champions. Wow, thank you. And he left. Anyways, we get in. I'm wearing the jacket. We get into the dressing room with my president. Everybody's drinking champagne. They leave. We're going to the victory party. Grey Cup's there. I go, I don't know. I've never won the Grey Cup. I'm supposed to take it. I don't know. So we had the limo outside. We go. We walking down the street, and people are cheering. Well, there it is. Look at that. And nobody had pitch cameras then, right? So anyways, we get into the party. Everybody cheers, put it up. And I'm going, okay, we're going to buy significant rings for you guys and significant, bracelets with just thinking of others. And we're going to get, what about the jackets? Jackets for everybody, So then, if we're leaving, there's that Grey Cup. Jesus, take it, to our hotel, and right, and it's like we have it. So then I phone my restaurant. I'll bring you the Grey Cup today. A car dealership, Maury Keith, will take you. People got these little cameras. There I go. Brought it home. I have it in my living room, right? I have the Grey Cup in my living room. And Roxanne's, my wife now, is the Grey Cup is there, and her brother is a big Eskimo fan. Grey Cup, I'm going to a party. Can I take it? And he's a responsible guy. I go, yeah, take it. Bring it back. So he took it. He brought it back. So about 6 months later, Larry Smith calls me. Bill, we got problems. What? We don't know where the Grey Cup is. I go, Jesus, it's in my living room. Now it's like, now they got it all,
So you kept it for 6 months.
Yeah. I took her to the Comrie reunion, a big family reunion.
I love the fact that you trusted the guy that well. Hey, can I just take us to a house party? That guy would have been pretty popular just showing up at the party. Hey, I got the Grey Cup. What happened, fellas? That is awesome. Great stuff, Bill. Hey, continued success with everything. Thanks so much for spending an hour with us here on the Business of Sports. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, good seeing you again, Jason. Good. And Rich, thank you.
Yeah, take care, Bill.
Rich looked after all our kids. So.
Yeah, you betcha. That is Bill Comrie. Man, what a storyteller, and what a life is successful. Obviously, and we had a lot of texts from people that are like, man, I didn't know that story. Bill's father passed away, and that was kind of his introduction to get into the family business. Probably earlier than he expected. Herb passed away young. Bill was only 19.
But Bill always thought like a team. Like it was some of the things he did. One of the things he did I thought was really fascinating. So he went down to go to the furniture shows, right, to buy furniture in South Carolina, which was before China took over, and he assembled a group of guys who different markets who he thought were the best in that market.
Yeah.
So they all got together, shared marketing information, did all that stuff. I mean, Bill recognized his weaknesses, which became his strength, right? And every one of those companies, but Bill's, was bought by Warren Buffett. And the only time he was a little bit reluctant to take my call on one of his kids, it went something like this. Rich, I just can't talk right now. I am spanking Warren Buffett in a card game. And I go, fine, Bill, I'll call you later. That was the only time. So that was, what I really like about Bill is, you go to one of Bill's parties, or when Mike got traded to Philadelphia, and the others didn't take Corey Perry in the first round pick that the Anaheim Ducks put forward, but half the plane was full of guys he went to high school with. Bill understands the value of his roots, and he understands the value of being a father. And that's not something I see often in people as successful as him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great stuff, Rich. We appreciate it. An early but very fun edition of the.
Well, we'll try and talk that one.
Yeah, well, hey, buddy, you fly safe.
Well, we're going to do one maybe from St. Petersburg.
We're going to try to figure it out.
If I survive.
Yes, if I survive. Yeah, so good luck in Russia.
Yeah, we'll do the memorial service live from Russia. Maybe. I have to take like thousands of dollars in cash because they don't take credit cards. Like the Americans won't process them. And I'm like, I get in at 1:00 in the morning. So I phoned the GM and he says, oh no, we'll send a car for you. I'm going like, I can only imagine everybody that speaks only English walking around, they have a couple $1,000 in their bag, in their pockets, right?
Oh, geez.
So I need someone to pick me up. I'm a little nervous.
Drive safe. Hopefully you got a good chauffeur to pick you up.
Yeah, we'll see.